And as Americans head to the polls today, many people on both sides of the border are waiting for the results. Some might even feel a bit anxious. And the uncertainty about what's going to happen can weigh heavily on our minds. Janine Hubbard is a registered psychologist who works in St. John's. We've called her up to get some tips on managing anxiety during times like these. Good morning, Janine Hubbard.
Good morning, Martin Jones.
How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you. Maybe feeling a little anxious like a lot of Canadians as well.
Why is that? Why do you think we are feeling some anxiety around big events, especially in an election that isn't even in our country at this point?
Well, one of the key things that can create anxiety is when there's something there's uncertainty and we have no control over it. That is the perfect storm to create stress and anxiety. You're quite right. There are some of us who may have a direct impact, but for a lot of Canadians, yes, there will be some impact, but it's not to the extent that perhaps a lot of people are thinking or feeling at the moment. And one of the things that has happened is with an election like this, people have become very polarized. If it was something where they, didn't feel terribly strongly, they wouldn't be feeling anxious about an outcome. But because it's become so polarized, there is increased levels of anxiety that's happening.
And I guess when you hear messaging, whether it's in the news or on social media, that this is a vote for democracy and a vote for freedom and all those other things, it just adds to that tension, right?
Well, no question. What it leads to is a lot of black and white thinking, so that if you have a strong opinion on a candidate or a party and the other party wins, there is this idea of it's going to be a catastrophe. It's going to be the end of the world. We've really become very black and white, all or nothing thinking. And in reality, life will go on for all of us tomorrow. But I'm also willing to bet there's going to be a lot of sleep-deprived people.
Yeah, no doubt. How can people recognize when their anxiety or this tension is becoming a bit overwhelming and having a negative impact on them?
Well, and again, you want to look at the fact that some anxiety is totally normal and appropriate. And listen, we've been listening to this in the media for so many months. It's dominated in so many ways that it's hard not to get sucked into it. But if you're seeing things like it's interfering with your sleep, if you are spending a disproportionate amount of time on social media or watching the news, if you don't set a bedtime for yourself tonight and say, right, we aren't going to know anything till the morning, so I would be far better off coping with a good night's sleep. You want to take a look at some of those adaptive coping skills.
All right. Let's talk about some of these here. What are some healthy coping ways that we can deal with anxiety during these uncertain times?
Well, as I said, the lack of control is a big piece. So if there's something you can do that's within your control, whether it's, donating time or money to a cause, whether it's doing something where you feel you have been active in contributing, that's great. For a lot of us, it's not. So then we look at things like active coping and distraction. So things like setting times and limits around news access and social media access, going for a walk, cooking a meal, doing something. Today is not the day to talk to your friends and family who disagree with you politically. It's not going to get you anywhere, and it's just going to heighten that stress and, again, that polarization.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't think I've ever heard you say avoid having conversations with the people you love, but I think in this situation that might be a good idea, right?
Well, know who you're talking to, and know kind of what your media access looks like. I'll be honest, yes, I was on social media yesterday, and I have it very carefully culled so that I have a lot of like-minded people there who, we're talking about kind of the anticipated stress, and it felt kind of supported. But if I was then to come across some real negativity or some opposing views, I could see how that then sucks you in. The other thing I would say is, like I say, avoiding conversations, avoiding social media. If you are online, please be very mindful of posting anything in the next 48, 72 hours. Really think it through, sleep on it. It's really easy to write things during heightened emotions, during those periods of anxiety and stress that you just might regret the next morning. So just be careful.
Janine, can we just put that piece of advice on a loop and play that every hour of the show?
I would love to do that. And listen, we're going to have our own election coming up at some point, and I'm going to repeat all this advice for that one as well.
Yep, absolutely. How can taking breaks from the news here benefit our mental health?
Well, one of the things that has happened is we lose perspective. Again, it's so all-encompassing and you get sucked in, whether it's to the 24-hour news channel that has to hype things and has to have something to talk about, or the doom scrolling online, we forget, right, I have to do really practical things like laundry and, pack lunch for the kids or whatever it is that's on your task for today. We lose track of the fact that it's not going to have an immediate impact on us today or tomorrow for most of us. So kind of taking that break, it helps you gain that perspective. And again, it gives you time for some of that self-reflection, some of those self-care activities. And it's just going to those little breaks can really help to kind of de-escalate some of that anxiety.
All right. And before we say our goodbyes here, I always like to ask this question, but are there any signs that indicate when it's time to seek maybe some professional help for your anxiety, whether it's in this situation or in any situation?
Oh, absolutely. And this is just one of many. And for people who perhaps have some levels of anxiety that's already, maybe needing some help, something like the election can kind of put symptoms over the edge. So you want to look at how much is it interfering with your daily functioning? Is it interfering with sleep? Is it interfering with your focus and your concentration? Are you able to do other things, or are you, constantly thinking about the things that have you worried? And again, keeping in mind, some anxiety is normal. It's when it kind of crosses over that threshold to interfering with life that maybe it's a good time to, reach out and look for some support around it.
Yeah, always solid advice. Janine, great talking to you. I'm glad I finally had a chance to talk to you. The last couple of times you've been on the show, I haven't been here. So it's great to hear your voice.
Well, thank you so much. Likewise.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.